decision that was just made by Marc Benioff, the CEO of Salesforce, is very interesting for a number of different reasons, both broadly in terms of what we think of the role of business and society, and also specifically in terms of how we view the role of CEOs and some of the decisions that they make related to some of their specific stakeholders. I personally find it interesting for broad reasons, because in 2019, the Business Roundtable actually redefined the purpose of the corporation, not as an entity that maximizes the wealth of shareholders, but as one that tries to balance the need of all stakeholders. And what's interesting is that it seems like with decisions like we're seeing at Salesforce, which is one that's very geared towards trying to enhance employee work-life balance, that maybe this is a decision that would have occurred at some point anyway, but certainly the COVID disruption may have accelerated it. What's interesting is that I think we're starting to see a shift in a lot of major corporations and other organizations that are really trying to take this more balanced approach to trying to manage a multitude of stakeholders and not only maximizing shareholder revenue and the bottom line. Marc Benioff, the CEO of Salesforce, has been fairly, I guess we could say, avant-garde with a lot of his views on social causes and social initiatives. We remember Salesforce pulling out of Indiana after the state Senate actually passed a law that would allow businesses to discriminate on the basis of sexual orientation. And so this is in some ways a continuation of Benioff specifically, really kind of shaping Salesforce in his image and the values that he believes are important not only for society, but are also kind of interwoven into what he considers to be a really positive organizational culture. But the challenge is with this, especially at this extended parental leave for only working parents, the challenge now becomes, what about those employees that don't have kids? Will they feel like potentially they have some sort of disadvantage because they don't have additional time off? And so it also reflects the complexities of having to balance all of these stakeholder needs. In all likelihood, probably what's going on there is that the majority of employees at Salesforce likely have children. And so this was probably a decision that was made with a lot of care and which they reflected on a whole lot. And they ultimately decided that for the time being, employees who have children and families are simply a stakeholder that they're choosing to prioritize over potentially other forms of employees. But in all likelihood, they're also considering what are some of the potential forms of backlash that might come from other stakeholders. This could come from the board. This could come from the financial markets that maybe perceive this to be simply too subservient in some way at the expense of trying to get more efficient and come out of this crisis in a more profitable position. So it'll be really interesting to see how it plays out. But I think in the specific case of Salesforce and Marc Benioff, he's generally proven himself as someone who tends to put the welfare of employees and other stakeholders first and believes that profits follow after that. And we certainly, I think, can agree that that model has worked for Salesforce. Whether it would work for other companies remains to be seen. And I think it's a really interesting time just in general when we see news items coming out like this, where I think we're seeing the purpose of business being redefined. I think different societal expectations are being placed on businesses as societal actors, not merely for-profit entities whose only roles in society is simply to maximize the financial returns of shareholders. And so I think this is a very interesting time for students to be studying business, as kind of, I think our understanding of what it involves and the impacts it can have are broadening out.